I want you to think back to the first time you ever remember being truly afraid. What was it? Does it stick with you today? This is the sort of thing that we talk about on the House of Asher. Won't you join us? The House of Asher, a clearinghouse for the mind. I want you to think back to the first time you ever remember being truly afraid. What was it? Does it stick with you today? This is the sort of thing that we talk about on the House of Asher. Won't you join us? The House of Asher, a clearinghouse for the mind. I want to welcome all of you to the maiden voyage of House of Asher. I am your host, Steve Asher. When I come up with this idea, I wanted to do something a little bit different. It's really hard, and if you touch on anything podcast-wise or whatever that touches on the paranormal, to not be exactly like a clone of, say, if you're doing ghost stuff, it's going to be a clone of, say, old Art Bell shows, or it's really hard not to be a clone of this or that. And what I really didn't want to do was come on and be like, hey, everybody, it's great to see you. Welcome to the show. I've done that type of radio work before. There's nothing wrong with that. There's, I guess, a time and a place. But I want to talk to you guys. I don't want to sit here and try to sell you a line of BS. I want to talk to you like we're friends, and hopefully over time, if you guys, tuning in for the shows and whatnot, that's what we'll be. That's what we will be, rather. And so anyway, what I wanted to touch on was a few different things. I wanted to look at, first of all, people's fears, how they affect you, and what paths maybe they cause you to diverge upon. Maybe they, again, make you so completely a basket case that you are not able to function. But yet, on the other hand, perhaps it made you so vigilant, wanting to make sure it's maybe something negative that happened to you didn't happen to somebody else. You became a police officer, or you became a doctor, or you became a lawmaker, who knows what. But the first thing I wanted to touch on, at least on this episode, was the Russian sleep experiment. I think we all remember the Russian sleep experiment. Started out as a creepypasta creation, obviously, in which you can visit these guys, on YouTube. If you have no idea what creepypasta is, you're obviously very new to YouTube. They've got a whole gaggle of stuff, which has included, obviously, the Russian sleep experiment, Slender Man, a lot of different things that, went on to become movies, which including the Russian sleep experiment. Became a movie, I think it was in 2015, if memory serves. But I'll touch base quickly about, basically, the story was around a group of political dissidents that was right around the ending part of the war, or mid part of the war of World War II, and they took these people and they were doing experimentations on them with a sleep drug, and if I remember correctly, I guess this was probably to give to their soldiers, so they wouldn't have to sleep, almost like a super soldier serum, a la Captain America, So anyway, they had these guys set up in this room, and it was completely sealed, airtight, and they would have oxygen pumped into the room with a certain percentage of this weird, like nerve agent, sleep agent. Anyway, what happened was they would have to keep it just so, because basically it was a toxin and it would kill you really, really quickly. So they had to just barely give them enough for it to affect them over a course of several weeks. I believe the test was going to be like 2 weeks, 15 days, something like that. Anyway, they had enough food, they had cots, they had all the basic amenities that you would afford for someone to halfway function in those type of conditions. And obviously it was also somewhat of a sensory thing. They just didn't have any exposure to anything outside. Well, things started out basically okay. First 5 days or so, things were pretty mundane. They were doing different activities and whatnot. They had portholes that were basically like two-way mirrors that they could watch them through. They also had microphones set up various locations in the testing area. And as time went on, strange things started to happen. The people began to become increasingly more paranoid. They would got to the point where they would start talking about really dark subjects, and as time went on, the more I guess they were isolated, the darker the subjects became, the more depressed they came, the more violent they appeared to become, to the point of they would start screaming and wouldn't stop screaming for hours and hours. And the people were whispering into the microphones all kinds of crazy, cryptic stuff. And finally, they covered up the porthole, and either they thought they dismantled the microphones, but everything fell quiet. There were no more communiques back and forth, and they more or less said, "Look, we're coming in." They tried to go in, and as I understand, some of the people were attacked, the soldiers and such, and there were several of the people that had been in there had been either torn to pieces or tore their own selves to ribbons, and there was a handful of more of the hardcore dissidents that were still alive in there, and they told them, said, please, close us back up. The light hurts us, just leave us to the darkness. And so they were trying to overtake these guys because they thought, okay, this just went way too far, even for political prisoners. So they started trying to fight them, and basically, I understand, one survived. The person that did survive was so out of it, again, still begging to stay in there. They didn't want anything about it. And it was a thing where the doctors were working on them, and the guy or lady told them as they were getting close to it, says, "No, keep cutting." Almost a hint to like kind of a Hellraiser type situation. You're put in such dire straits and have to deal with such dark situations. No sleep, your mind's going, you're having hallucinations. And just everything was so everything was crazy, but they did EEGs on these people, but nothing really showed different, and just like they decided to shut down, and it was just such a strange thing to hear this, because like I said, there are so many different things that kind of parallel things that have happened in other countries and stuff, and in our own countries. What was so funny, if I'm getting the quote right, they were asking us, says, what are you? The scientist said, we have to know. And I guess if you want to call it a human, said, have you forgotten so easily? We are you. We are the madness that lurks within you all, begging to be free rather at every moment in your deepest animal mind. We're what you hide from in your beds every night. We're what you sedate into silence and paralysis when you go into the nocturnal and fear to tread. And it's one of those, it's chilling. And I know that if you look just like in the U.S., U.S. histories, you have everything from the from 1800s of different experimentation and exposure to different pathogens, and during the I think it was the 1930s or 40s, them releasing mosquitoes with syphilis in the black sections of, I think, Mississippi, and they had all these men contract syphilis, and basically we're saying, well, let's see how long it takes to affect them, what kind of resistance they have against it, just really kind of Dr. Mangala type stuff, things you would not not assume that an American, I mean, if at least, because I am an American, I would not ever do that to, well, an enemy, much less to a stranger, and this is our own government doing this. So it kind of leaves you with a healthy fear, and I think the fact that people do mistrust the government a lot more than they did before gives it that extra fuel, because like I said, a fear is generally just a fear, but it's like a spark, but if it finds kindling in your head, that's when it takes off, and that's a fire that's almost impossible to put out. So I thought that was really interesting, especially once that there are still a lot of tests going on. They've had different plasma tests going on with synthetic blood. It was up as early as recently as, I guess, probably 2012 or 14. They did not get permission from these people at all. They dosed them up, and there it was. So, I thought that was pretty creepy in itself, because it's real. And that's the thing that really got me, is the fact that, this is not a script. This is not a bedtime story or a horror novel. This is real life, and this is the people that we, have elected or have, however, worked themselves into a seat of power. So anyway, that was kind of what I wanted to touch on the first little episode. Because like I said, as we go along, we're going to do more different things and have interviews with folks and things like that, and really touching on people's personal fears and different things like that. I mean, we might even, review different horror movies, sci-fi movies we like, or our favorite novelist or whatever. But I want to know what you guys think. Please leave some comments for this, and I would love to hear from you guys. I am also a writer. I write mainly about paranormal subjects. You can go to steveeasher.com, all lowercase and together. You can find my books on Simon & Schuster. You can also find I'm actually doing artwork and putting them on t-shirts and stuff. You can find that through Posh Embroidery on YouTube. And I want to hear what you guys think about it. I want you to give me some ideas. I want you to say, hey, this really freaked me out as a kid, or this is something I've never been able to shake. Something to spook me. I want you guys, because when you guys are afraid, it gets me afraid. So yeah, get back with me and let me know what you guys think. Please leave comments. Please feel free to share, and subscribe to this page and pass it on. Like I said, I want the scares to keep going. And I appreciate you guys tuning in. And until next time, stay creepy.